Hello, everyone, and welcome to my LinkedIn Live with Erica Keswin. Really excited about today's topic, the retention revolution. Build a business with relationships at the center. We're going to be talking about Erica's new book, and we're going to talk about work right now and some of the trends that are happening right now. Really excited for this conversation. I am Heather Odendahl. I'm the founder of WNORTH, a navigational membership for women on a trajectory towards senior executive leadership. And I am thrilled to be chatting with Erica today. She is a brilliant author who has a couple of books that I highly recommend, all on the future of work and building workplace community. And some of the books she has are Bring Your Human to Work, 10 surefire ways to design a workplace that is good for people, great for business, and just might change the world. Rituals Roadmap, which came out just a couple years ago, The Human Way to Transform Everyday Routine into Workplace Magic. And her new book, Retention Revolution, 7 Surprising Ways to Keep Employees Connected to Your Business, which is set to release in September. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Erica into the conversation today, and we're going to get started. Welcome, Erica.
So great to see you.
It is so great to see you. I am, over the years, we have had several chats through the different evolutions of work through the pandemic. And a lot of what your book touches on is sort of understanding some of those changes as they've happened through our workplace, and what old paradigms were and what new paradigms exist. So really excited to kind of get started on that conversation. But first of all, I would love for you to introduce yourself and share a little bit about the inspiration behind your new book.
Great. So hi, everybody. Great to be back with you. I am a workplace strategist, which I describe as helping companies improve performance through people. And so it's, the through line of all the books really is about how to create a better workplace that's not only better for people, your employees, but also better for your bottom line, and how those two things are not mutually exclusive. And in terms of the inspiration, it was funny. I didn't think I'd write one book, let alone 2, and now 3. And after the second one came out, I sort of took a reprieve, and then I started getting calls saying more has changed about work than really in any time in our lifetime. How are you not weighing in on this? And so I started, doing research and seeing some real trends and some things that I know we'll talk about today. But it was almost like, how do I not come in this moment and try to make the workplace work for more people?
Yeah, and what I love about your work as well is your work is always so current. Like, you must write. Let's talk about that for a second, because it also is changing. Like, how many iterations do you have? Because things have changed in the last even year. What's your sort of process? How long does it take for you to put your book together?
This book was fast tracked. I would say I started writing it last spring. And so, yeah, I mean, it's fast. Someone asked me earlier today, how do you, because things keep changing after it's handed in. And the answer is yes, that's true. But at some point you have to put a stake in the ground and say it's done. There have been times where I'm like, oh my God, that's the coolest example or case study. I wish I could have included that. The good news is I write articles and I'm always, so if people listening today, certain aspects resonate and they're like, my company does this, I always want to hear those great stories, and I try to share them as much as I can. The good news, though, is that this book, the content is relevant irrespective of where the pendulum is swinging, meaning the content is relevant when we were in the Great Resignation. and it's relevant in the Great Recession. It's relevant, in my humble opinion, when the employers had the power versus the employees. That these are things that, again, not rocket science, but if we're intentional, will be good for business and good for people. And so I try to take myself more up to 30,000 feet versus worrying about every little piece. But I do think people will find that regardless of the day that you read this book, what the headlines are in the news, there will be nuggets in there that are going to resonate.
I love that. And in your book, you talk about these sort of like the old ways and the new ways, and the way things have shifted. And one of the old sort of paradigms that you talk about is stability leads to growth. And the new is that dynamic change is what powers people and organizations. So understanding that there's often, changeover of staff and what that looks like. Can you talk about that a little bit? Obviously, there's a lot less longevity that people are staying at companies. So share with us about that.
Yeah. And that's a big part of the retention revolution, that, we always thought that stability led to growth. And sort of the examples that I always think of being in this human space for 25 years were the days of IBM and General Motors, where people stayed at one company their whole career and gradually moved up the ladder. And today, people certainly aren't for the most part staying in one company. They might even not stay in 3 companies or 5 companies. I mean, the younger people are looking at their career as a portfolio. And again, I was a recruiter. It used to be that you would look at someone's resume and said, oh my God, Heather's moved 10 times, red flag, don't go near her. Versus now this, change is what we're going to see. And so the workplaces, need to lean into that and need to say, well, if change is what we can expect, and if people coming into our organizations don't necessarily see themselves as becoming partners or managing directors, they might, but that's not automatically their goal like it was for many people. Of course, I'm going to start at a law firm and I'm going to want to be a partner. Like, what else would I want to be? And so because those expectations are changing, the workplaces need to change in response. And that really is what the book is about. And if companies do make some of the changes and shifts that I talk about in the book, you'll stay connected with your employees long after they leave, and work becomes much more of this virtuous cycle.
I love that. And a trend I'm also seeing among the women in the WNORTH community is that there really is a shift away from needing to have these like big name brands on their resume. Like 10 years ago, it was so crucial if you graduated from university that you were going to have one of these globally recognized brands or tech companies as a stamp of like, I'm working at, enter large tech company name. And that was, a real building block for, they may go on to smaller businesses in the future, but they had to start there. And we're seeing, less of a focus on those big brands and more of a focus on that culture that they're creating.
And I would say a focus on skills, that culture, but it's, and that's one of the chapters in the book too. It's called From Ladders to Lily Pads, which also gets away from the longevity of the ladder. But like, people are saying, you know what? Yes, there might be brand name companies, but I want to go somewhere where they're going to invest in my development and where I can be developed up, down, and sideways. And that might mean the sideways. I have some great examples of women in particular who said, you know what? I don't want to leave the workforce, but I also right now, given my priority, I might not want to move up. I might want to move across or even move down or move more to an internal role. And so companies that are really thinking about and trying to, make work for lots of different people.
And this reminds me of one of your old new examples, which is old professional development should be job related. New companies benefit from well-adjusted employees. Personal development is professional development. I love this, especially because this is one of the reasons why I started WNORTH, is to create a network across industries that really focused on the personal professional blend of, being a better worker, being a better person. Let's talk about that for a minute, and how, companies can really embrace that non-job related training.
Yeah. So, and for some people, I do think it's a reach. Can we really do that? So I would say a couple things. Um, I think if people realize and remember that as humans we want to grow, there might be technical skills that somebody needs to work on. But in addition, it's asking people, how do you want to grow and develop? And not being afraid of the answer. Because somebody might say, oh, I might want to grow and develop, which might develop me right out the door or into a different department. A big shift in the retention revolution is for managers to really say, I need to think big picture for the person and for the company. And it really is better for all of us. I don't want this person to leave the company, but if they end up telling me that they really want to develop a certain skill set that may not be exactly job related, and it might be related to some other different department, they're going to leave if they don't get it. And so it's sort of not, it's the hoarder, the abundance mentality, trying to look more broadly. On the really personal stuff, I highlight companies who say, you know what, you have a stipend. And, I had one person that said that he took an improv class, which made him better at his sales job. I had a woman that said that she took this humanities class just because she wanted to use her brain in a different way. It had nothing to do with her job. But she said when she came back studying Plato and Aristotle, she just was able to look and think about problems in a completely new way. And so, and then somebody might be listening to this saying, oh, well, I don't have the budget for this. There are other companies that get all of their employees in the room, and each person every week rotates and teaches the group something that they know, that they bring to the table. Again, something, someone taught a class on, how to surf. It could be anything. And that helps you get to know people more, and also just keeps your brain moving and keeps things fun and interesting.
Oh, I love that. We're a small business, but we have $1,000 wellness benefit that literally, can be used towards a ski pass or a gym pass or whatever it is. So I love that flexibility and empowering the employees to be able to make some of those decisions about how they want to spend their training and development. So that's great. One of the questions that I really wanted to get, a juicy question, very on topic with what's going on right now on TikTok, is I wanted to get your feedback on the lazy girl job revolution. Now, let me introduce this to people in case they have not heard about it. So first we kind of had quiet quitting, and now there's more sort of anti-work discourse sort of building in sort of TikTok world. And it's about lazy girl jobs. And the term basically refers to, not killing yourself or burning out for a job, finding a job that's more flexible, but has a lot of room for work-life balance. Some people are saying, what does this mean? Does this mean you're not dedicated to your work? Some people are saying, no, it means we're still dedicated, but we need to cruise into an easy job. So I would love to know get your feedback on this trend and, what you think it means for employers.
Yeah, it's, first of all, the fact that this is trending on TikTok, that, it means that it's a thing. I would also say, there's never one size fits all, but my reaction to it, I'm going to quote a friend and colleague, Lindsay Pollock, who does a lot of work around has a lot of generational expertise, and wrote a book called The Remix. She said in response to this question, and I could not agree more, which is why I'd rather quote her, which is the idea of working a set number of hours and doing a set of clear tasks used to be just going to work. Why is that lazy? And so, part of the onus on these roles, and especially now when people are remote or hybrid or going into an office but missing each other, not going in on the same day, I feel like the word lazy also comes up because there's this, out of sight, out of mind. Of course, they're being lazy. They're not in the office. So, the onus in many cases is really on the bosses or the managers to say, you need to make the expectations clear of what's expected in the job. And if somebody comes in and meets all those expectations and has work-life balance, great. I think that there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. And it's the smart girl job, not the lazy girl job.
Yeah.
The other thing
it needs a rebrand.
I think it needs a rebrand. The other thing I would say though is that and this is not always so easy. And certainly, like, you're in a sales role, it's pretty clear how you can measure performance. But this is a big focus on managers today to rethink and to make sure it's communicated. What are the expectations of the job, and how is performance being measured? You're going to get a laugh out of this. So I have a new keynote presentation that I'm writing right now for my new book. And I guess I'll spill the beans and give you a little bit of an insight into it. There's a video of, if you're familiar of the mouse jiggler. So during the pandemic, when everybody was saying, oh, Heather's being lazy because she's working from home, we're going to start we're going to kind of big brother. We're going to start really tracking her keystrokes to see how much she's on her computer. So if you measure keystrokes, you're going to get keystrokes, which really doesn't necessarily mean that you're working. So this mouse jiggler is like a workaround so that literally you could be sunning yourself by the pool and your mouse, you could, get your mouse to actually jiggle. So it all goes back to, where there's a will, there's a way, there's a workaround. So start with, what is the job? How is performance measured? What are the clear expectations? And go from there. What people can't have, and some of them actually want it. And I was speaking to a partner at a law firm the other day about this. He said that in his law firm, they make it clear that there's more work-life balance at his firm versus some other firms. So instead of billing, let's say 2,200 hours a year, whatever it is at certain firms, his firm is, let's say 1,700 hours a year. And with that, you are going to get better work-life balance, but you're also going to get paid less because you're not billing as much and there's not enough money. So what you can't have is the people, well, you can have it, but it's not going to work, where someone says, okay, I want to work less and get paid more. We would all love that, but that doesn't really make the world of work.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I love the sort of the job share revolution for that, filling that gap. You have desire to work 2, 3, 4 days a week, but the job still needs to get done. And so, friend of mine, Sophie, and her husband, Dave, are building a company out of the UK, Role Share, which is kind of, putting people together to fill that gap. You touched on remote work. I want to go there for a second because, it's obviously a hot topic with organizations. I mean, Zoom just called back their employees to the office. So that in itself is a huge monumental shift and monumental shift. Sorry. And I want to, understand, what are your perspectives on what this fall looks like? Because we don't really do a lot in the summer. Nobody really calls anyone back to the office. They let everybody do their thing. What do you think that September holds?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting. I always think of September as it's back to school. Sometimes September almost feels more regenerative than New Year's, right? It's like after the summer. And what's interesting, particularly about this summer, is many companies, even in industries like financial services where you wouldn't expect it, companies are saying that they're letting people have remote August or work from anywhere August, that they're actually formalizing that. On the flip side, though, come September, they're saying we're going to go from 2 days to 3 or 3 days to 4. So where I come out, I'm not going to come and say, okay, for your company, 2.5 days is like the perfect amount. I think it depends on the industry. It depends on, are your employees co-located near an office? I spoke with a woman, actually, her name is Melissa Romo, and she's written some books on these topics as well. And she was describing a scenario within which the HR strategy was not aligned to the business strategy. So the boss said, okay, we're going to come back 3 days a week. And then all of a sudden, when you started to look at the numbers and you realized that a huge percentage of people were COVID migrants and moved away, then what happens is you're calling people back, but a huge percentage can't come back because they've moved to Iowa, wherever they've moved, or somewhere in Canada.
Yep.
And then the people that are living close by, they're frustrated because it's not fair. And the people that moved are frustrated because they feel disconnected. So, all of this really needs to be aligned. And I would say what cuts through, whether it's 1 day, 3 days, or 5 days in the office, we need to create moments that matter inside an organization. Microsoft's doing some cool work on this. And the other way I look at it as we need to create days in the office that are worth the commute. So what you don't want is, Heather and I, we both commute into the office and we work together, but you end up coming in on Mondays and Wednesdays and I come in on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We're both frustrated that we commuted. We get there and no one's there. And that creates what I call the recipe for resentment because we're just even more frustrated. So it's got to be intentional. And you want on the days when people are in to create opportunities, not all day, every day, but to have those moments of connection. It could be around a learning moment. It could be an all hands. It could be once a month where you volunteer together, ideally aligned to your company values. And the last, this is a huge passion of mine, so I could talk about this all day. And Bronwyn just wrote, I hate going into the office, then everyone just chit chats and catches up. Well, I will talk about that. But it's Bronwyn says I need to get work done. Well, actually, let's dive into what she's saying.
Yeah.
What I would say about that is what companies are rethinking is that there are going to be certain times where the goal in the office is to chit chat and catch up and build relationships. And on the days when people are home, or maybe it's, in the morning or in the afternoons, it's sort of heads down, no meetings, and really trying to create these rules of the road and these parameters. Because yes, people do need to get work done, but let's figure out how we define work. And if you're a brand new employee that doesn't know anybody, or you are a more junior person that wants to feel like they're getting mentored, and you come in and no one's talking to me, like I'm probably going to quit and go somewhere else. So I agree. It can be frustrating, but the goal is to, get input and really try to create, a plan around it. So it's not, just happenstance.
And also, the less frequent those going into the office days are, the more likely they will turn into a socialization because it's, you're only there once a week or once a month. Right. So,
and that's, I feel like we have to celebrate that, meaning like we're only in on Wednesdays or, a couple days. And we want to build these relationships because what the data also shows is, once you meet somebody in person and have that connection, the way that you interact with them online really changes and gets better. And so you want to use those moments in the office to innovate and collaborate and laugh and to get to know people as people, because then when you're not with them, it will make the work go more smoothly because you've built those real relationships.
And you start to get an understanding of how they work. And so if you're waiting on a file, you're waiting on an email or something, you don't necessarily resent them you start to understand, they're working on multiple projects right now. They just need a reminder. You definitely get more.
Some major thing that's going on in their life that they would feel so weird about telling you on text or Slack or on an email, but because you bumped into them, you heard that their kid was struggling or they have an elderly parent that's sick, and it brings more of that sense of humanity and empathy to the workplace.
Yeah, definitely. So moving kind of into that humanity, because your last couple books sort of have like an underlying theme, which is really, being human at work. And so, I'd love to touch on that a little bit with regards to, what a lot of the women in our community are managers. They're managing up and they're managing down. And they have, their important roles to nurture obviously their direct reports, but also the leaders above them. Any advice that you would give sort of that middle management category in going into the fall?
Yeah, so I'm obsessed with middle managers. There's a whole chapter in the book dedicated to managers. I describe I think that the middle managers are the MVPs of the retention revolution. And to your point, they're managing up, they're managing down, they're really on the front lines trying to make all this new stuff work. And it's stressful. From a leadership perspective, I would say we need to elevate the manager role. We need to support them. We need to provide training and guidance. We need to model well-being ourselves so that our managers take a breath and put their own oxygen mask on themselves, because the middle managers are taking care of the world, and they really need to focus on taking care of themselves so that they can take care of all the people that work for them. So if you're listening to this and you're a middle manager, I would say, buy this book for your leader so that they read it and understand how critical you are. But that you need to start bringing some of this to the table, to say that, that being a middle manager is critical and hard right now. And if you need support from your leaders, I urge you to ask for it, because, with all these trends that we've been talking about today, if we were to back up 6 months ago with a bunch of the tech companies laying off their middle managers to cut costs and flatten the organization, and now people are realizing, maybe that wasn't such a great idea, that the middle managers are critical linchpins, I would say that this moment is on your side to go in and say, this is what I need. This is the kind of support I need to be effective. And a big piece of it, and I write about this in the book, is being given time to actually manage, to really get a sense. I mean, there's a new book that I also love called The Power to the Middle. 3 McKinsey partners just wrote it. Came out like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, awesome.
And it's amazing. And it talks about, I think some statistics, something like 50 to 70% of a manager's time is spent on administrative work. So if you can kind of get a sense of how you're spending your time and see if there's ways to free up, or give other tasks to different people so you actually can manage. Because if you don't have time to manage, that's really going to impact, your ability to retain your people, which then impacts the bottom line of the company.
And if you are a female middle manager who's watching this, please, I encourage you to ask for the support you need, because some statistics came out. I am a visionary with a nonprofit in Canada called the Prosperity Project. And in their annual report card, they noticed a 12% drop in the number of women in the pipeline to senior management roles. It has dropped from 54.8% to 42.9% in 2023, which means we've just lost 20% of the women in the pipeline to senior executive leadership in 1 year. So definitely, the last few years, we don't have to go into that. That's an entirely different podcast or interview. But, really stressing to the women that are watching this and acknowledging that it's a hard job being in that middle management position. It's also a very influential job, and get the support that you need from the company that you work for. So we are at time, but one more thing is I want to give you an opportunity to tell people where they can find you, where they can get your book, when it's coming out, all of that.
Great. So my website is just my name, ericakeswin.com. You can buy, the book is available now for pre-sale. And one of the things that I'm telling people, if you do pre-order it, send me an email at ericakeswin.com. And I'm holding a couple of webinars. My first one is actually going to be on this topic of managers. So it's going to be for anybody that pre-orders the book. You'll get an invitation and really have a long discussion. Ask me anything. I'll provide the new research about both from a leadership, how to elevate the role of the manager, but also if you are a manager, what you can do. So I'm really excited about the book, and I'm pretty accessible. So if you see something, write me, and I'm excited to help, everybody, regardless of their role, figure out how to make work in this new ever-changing world.
Thank you. And I can attest to how accessible you have been to support the WNORTH community, Erica. Thank you for always coming on and weighing in on our ever-changing work. I'll give you the name of Erica's book one more time. It is The Retention Revolution: 7 Surprising Ways to Keep Employees Connected to Your Business. And it is set to release in September. Is there a specific date, or
September 26th.
26th. Okay, perfect. Pre-order on Erica's website. We'll drop it. You've already dropped it in the chat. Thank you for that. And thank you for your time today. And we can't wait to get our hands on the book when it comes out.
Great. Well, thank you, Heather, for inviting me and for all you do in supporting women in the workplace. It's really amazing.
Thank you. It's great to chat with you again. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.